Hello there, welcome to our science lesson. We wish to continue from where we left. Our topic was body systems. Subtopic systems working together. So previously we have already mentioned that the systems, they work for purpose of satisfying the needs of the cells. The cells require materials like nutrients, which include glucose, that is very important for respiration. But also during this respiration, we have metabolism that produces waste metabolic products. Some of the products, in fact, nearly all of them, are poisonous. So because they are poisonous, they need to be removed from the cells to the excretory organs, so that they can be removed from the body. That's why cells or systems are going to work together. Like if we talk about, there's always a relationship between digestive system materials moving from digestive system to circulatory system through absorption, then from circulatory system to respiratory system, or oxygen from respiratory system into circulatory system, which now transports oxygen to other tissues and cells. So there's always a way in which these systems are related. We are not going to have any system that is going to function on its own. Even nervous system is important. It is the one that's controlling all other systems. Endocrine system, the same way. Reproductive system depends on circulatory system. So that's why we are emphasizing that systems must always work together. We wish to continue from where we left. We were mentioning systems, parts of those systems, and function of the system. The role of this task is just to help us review what we have been going through in this topic, body systems. So that question was question number 4. Question 4, which was requiring us to name the system, parts of the system, and the function of the system. So system, parts of the system, and function of the system. So we shall look at systems that we have gone through. We can start with digestive system. The major parts of digestive system, we have the mouth, you can write with me if you have a paper. You can also make a search table, and then we go through together. From the mouth, or inside the mouth, we have some glands. You can remember the glands. They were called salivary glands. As a reminder, salivary glands, we said they secrete saliva. Saliva is important because it dissolves food, it softens food, it also contains enzymes, enzyme amylase, and then it also provides the correct pH for working of enzyme amylase. And then because it has mucus, it holds food boluses together. Then down we have esophagus. Remember the role of esophagus acting as a passage for movement of food from the mouth to the stomach. We have stomach. The major role is for digestion of proteins. Digestion of proteins. So we have the stomach. We know the role of stomach, where digestion of proteins takes place. And then down the stomach, we have ileum. The other name for ileum is small intestines. Small intestines. In the small intestines, that's where we have two parts, the duodenum and the other part, which we are calling the ileum. But majorly in small intestines, we have two processes taking place: digestion, where we have completion of digestion, and also absorption of digested food. Large intestines. The role of large intestines is majorly absorption of water. We have the rectum, where feces is formed, and the last bit is the anus. So we were able to describe digestive system as a continuous tube from the mouth to the anus. So it goes through the body. Function. It has two major functions. One is digestion of food. Remember, digestion of food, we have two types: chemical and physical digestion. Physical digestion mostly takes place in the mouth, where there's breakdown of food from large particles to small particles. We call that one as physical digestion. Chemical digestion involves use of enzymes. The enzymes will break down food materials from complex to simple form. There's a difference between complex and large, and small and simple form. A material could be small but not complex. So it is in physical digestion where it is being broken down from large to small sizes, so that it increases surface area for chemical digestion. But in chemical digestion, materials are broken from complex forms to simple forms. Complex form could include proteins, for example. Proteins are broken down to simple form. Simple form of protein here being amino acids. I think you can again remember this. Another system is circulatory system. Circulatory system consists of parts like the heart. The heart, you know the role of the heart. This contracts and relaxes, and in the process is able to pump blood throughout the body. We have blood vessels. Blood vessels such as arteries, such as veins, such as capillaries. The role of blood capillaries in general provides a passage or channels through which blood will be flowing. The other part is blood or blood tissue. Remember, we have always said that tissue is made up of cells. So in blood tissue we expect cells. Some of the cells include red blood cells. We have white blood cells. And then we have platelets. Just a review slightly, red blood cells are used for transportation, are involved in transportation of gases: oxygen, carbon dioxide. Remember we said oxygen will be carried in form of oxyhemoglobin. Carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide will be transported in the red blood cells in form of aminohemoglobin. White blood cells, they form the defense mechanism of the body, such that if the body is invaded with pathogen or disease causing organisms, white blood cells may produce antibodies which will destroy pathogens, or white blood cells are going to engulf the pathogen, and in the process the pathogen is destroyed. We called that process of engulfing and destroying pathogen as phagocytosis. Platelets are involved in blood clotting. When you get injured at a point, there'll be blood oozing out, but it does not continue for long because platelets have chemicals or enzymes called thrombokinase, which initiates the clotting process. And in the process, a clot is formed that seals the wound, and blood clotting or bleeding stops. Major function of circulatory system is transportation. Transportation of materials around the body. For instance, we have nutrients. I know by now you know major nutrients that the body requires. We have glucose. Just a reminder, glucose. We have amino acids. These are the forms in which these materials will be transported. We have fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids and glycerol. We have mineral ions. And then we have water. We have vitamins. So transportation of materials, for instance, nutrients. And then also, because it has cells, transport cells like red blood cells. And in the process, as it is transporting red blood cells, is also transporting gases. Transporting cells like white blood cells. If there is a wound at a point, white blood cells will be more at that point, so that now if there is an infection, white blood cells are involved in the fighting of the pathogens. Platelets will also be transported to injured or severed points, so that it can cause blood clotting to reduce hemorrhage. As it is transporting these materials, also circulatory system will be aiding in distribution of heat around the body. We have some organs in the body that produce more heat than others. For instance, we have the liver. When it is hot, and not hot, when it is cold, the reaction in the liver increases. Those reactions are called exothermic reaction. An exothermic reaction is the one that releases heat. So liver will increase exothermic reaction and decrease endothermic reaction. Increased exothermic reaction produces heat. That heat from the liver will be distributed to the rest of the body through circulatory system. The other system, skeletal system. Three. Skeletal system. Now you can also remember how skeletal system, or the components of skeletal system. We mentioned that we have a tissue, two types of tissues that make skeletal system. One was called bony tissue. So skeletal system is made up of bones. Remember, we were able to describe the rest of the skeleton being made up of bones: the skull, the vertebral column, the appendicular skeleton, the forearms, the hind limbs, and so many other parts. We also have cartilage. Cartilage. Remember, cartilage is found at, if that is a bone, the head of the bone, at this point. We shall have cartilage at those points. So this one will be bone tissue, but this one cartilage. Cartilage usually performs the role of cushioning bones, so that if, for example, in the vertebral column, they are in contact with each other, there is reduced friction. It reduces friction. But sometimes bones can knock even when they are not in contact. Maybe you are jumping, there is a dislocation, something like that. If it was bone tissue to bone tissue, because it is very rough and hard, there will be friction, which will cause wear of or wearing of the bones. So cartilage also reduces friction. Then we have ligaments. If we have another bone at that point, this bone has to be attached to another bone, but with space remaining in between. So that tissue that attaches bone to bone is called the ligament. So the role of ligament attaching one bone to another. Other parts of skeleton, we have the tendons. Tendons, usually if we have a muscle, that is a muscle, these muscles are not just going to hang close to a bone. They'll be attached to the bone by a structure. So that structure or parts that hold muscle to bone is called a denton, the tendon. So a tendon holds bone to muscle. So having reviewed that, we can look at the functions of skeletal system. Some of the functions include providing support to soft parts, of the body. Some parts of the body are soft, like the abdominal part is made up of soft parts. So we realize that we shall have the lumbar vertebra that has a long or elongated transverse process, so that now it can form site for attachment of back muscles. Then protection to delicate parts of the body. Provides protection to delicate parts of the body. We mentioned, for instance, the brains, e.g. brains. Brains are found in the skull so that they can be protected from damage. We have the inner ear, inner and middle ear. Our ears are found in the skull. Our eyes are found in the skull in points called the eye socket. Then again, the skeletal system provides a framework. For attachment of muscles. You have muscles on your body, but they are held in position, giving shape to your body because of the skeletal system. So as it provides a framework for attachment of muscles, these muscles will contract and relax When muscles contract and relax, they bring about movement. Contract and relax, so that movement can happen. Movement and locomotion. Movement and locomotion. Remember, we were able to find the difference between movement and locomotion. Movement only involves parts of the body without displacing the whole body. You can move your hand. You move your hand sideways, moving, but your body is still at the same position. But when you move from point A to point B, the whole of the body, we call that one as locomotion. Other roles include acting as. Skeletal system acts as a storage for minerals, specifically salts, because the bones, we said, are made up of salts, calcium and phosphate salts. And then the last bit, production of cells. Remember the cells that we identified. Production of cells, e.g. red blood cells and platelets. Another system is the nervous system. Nervous system. Remember, nervous system is made up of parts like the brains, the spinal cord. These two forms the central nervous system. It is said to be central nervous system because it is where all sensory impulses are assigned, interpretation takes place, and then we have a motor response to effector organs. We have neurons. Remember neurons, these are nerves or nerve cells through which impulse are transmitted. But again, very important, we have sense organs. Sense organs where we have the receptor cells so that they can detect changes in the environment. Function of nervous system, you can remember with me that one of them, if for example we are looking at the sense organs, if you touch a hot object, you realize that it is hot because we have sense organs that has receptor cells. So here is to detect change in the environment. Role of nervous system, detect changes in the environment. This environment could be external or internal. So that change in the environment, we call it a stimuli. Stimulus, if it is one, stimuli, if there are many, plural form. After detecting these changes in the environment, we are going to have neurons again that will be involved, so that now nerves or nerve impulse are assigned to the central nervous system. So conduction of nerve impulses. Nervous system conducts nerve impulses. Also, as a reminder, we said nerve impulses are those electrical messages that are usually transmitted through the neurons, either toward the central nervous system or out away from the central nervous system to effectors. And then this part here, the brain and the spinal cord, we say it is the one that interprets and then now controls the rest of the body systems, controls the activities. So interpretation, providing response, interpretation, response, and control the activities of the body. Controls activities of the body. Number 5, endocrine system. Endocrine system. Now we said endocrine system is also a means of communication in the body, such that if there are changes in the body, it is going to respond. There will be response, and then it will lead to some changes in the activities of the body. So most of the parts of the endocrine system are glands. If we begin from the brain part or the head region, we have a part, pituitary glands. Pituitary glands. Remember, we said pituitary gland is the master gland. It controls activities of the rest of the glands. When you move down, also in the we also have hypothalamus, without forgetting hypothalamus in the brain, which sends impulses to pituitary gland or sometimes hormones to pituitary gland so that it can respond appropriately. We have in the neck region, we have thyroid gland. Thyroid gland, the one that secretes a hormone called thyroxine. We have parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland. We have others like thymus gland, the one that is responsible for conversion of lymphocytes into T specialized cells. We have adrenal gland. For secretion of adrenaline hormone. We have ovaries and testes. For secretion of, if it is ovaries or estrogen hormone, or estrogen, and testes for secretion of testosterone. You know the role of those hormones. So again, just like nervous system, endocrine system is a means of communication. A means of communication for purpose of controlling, to control and regulate activities of the body. Activities of the body. Indeed, the hormones that are secreted by this gland control activities of the body. Look at adrenal gland secreting a hormone adrenaline. Adrenaline has been classified as a hormone for fight or flight. When somebody is under stress or has anxiety, what happens? Adrenal gland is stimulated, releases adrenaline hormone, which will now change some few activities in the body, like, for example, increasing the rate of heartbeat, increasing the rate of respiration, increasing the rate of breakdown of glucose, so that one can now have more energy for purpose of either fighting or running away. That's why if you see a lion, one of the things that will happen, the heartbeat is going to increase because of adrenaline hormone. System number 6. we have respiratory system. Respiratory system. We also have some knowledge of respiratory system. We have already gone through it. This is just a summary. We were able to mention some of those parts. We have the nasal cavity. Nasal cavity to allow air to get in or out of the respiratory system to the pharynx. We have the pharynx, we have the larynx, which opens. Remember, we said the larynx is also called the voice box, the one that produces sound, but is the one that opens to the trachea. And then the trachea branches into two, opens into two branches called the bronchi. If it is one, bronchus, plural form. Singular form, that is bronchus, plural form bronchi. And then this opens into fine tubes called bronchioles, and bronchioles open into air sacs called alveoli. Now, the jinx of all in the respiratory system is the alveoli, because that is the major site for gaseous exchange. Alveoli has all the modification for gaseous exchange, such as being highly supplied with blood capillaries to maintain a steady diffusion gradient, being many in number, numerous, to provide a large surface area for gaseous exchange, having a film of moisture so that gases, when they get into contact or when they get into the alveoli, they are converted from gaseous form to liquid form so that it can easily diffuse into tissues. The role of respiratory system. One role is to bring gases, brings gases to and from respiratory surface. It brings gases to and from respiratory surface. We know this how it happens, through change in volume and pressure in the chest cavity. So we were able to do that illustration that if you held your rib cages or your ribs and then you breathed in and out, you realize that there is changes in volume of the chest cavity, which brings about change in pressure to allow inhalation or exhalation. After being brought to surface area or to respiratory surface, there is exchange. It allows exchange of gases to and from the blood. When gas reach alveoli, if it is in high, if I may just use that, and that is the alveoli, and that's the blood capillary. This is blood with red blood cells. And then we have oxygen molecule in the alveoli. There is high concentration of oxygen molecule in the alveoli than in blood. Maybe because the oxygen that was in blood has been used. The oxygen that was in blood has been used in respiration. So this oxygen will diffuse through the walls of the alveoli, through the walls of the capillary into red blood cells. This red blood cells is laden with carbon 4 oxide, has high concentration of carbon 4 oxide. So again, carbon 4 oxide will diffuse from these red blood cells through the walls of the capillaries, the walls of the alveoli, into alveolar space. It will have achieved exchange of gases. We are having oxygen getting into the blood, carbon dioxide getting out of the blood. So these are the major function of the respiratory system. System number 7, we have lymphatic system. Lymphatic system. Parts of lymphatic system include lymph nodes. We were able to mention several lymph nodes under the armpits, axillary lymph nodes. We have the pelvic lymph nodes and several others. We have a fluid called lymph. We have lymphatic or lymph vessels. We have some organs that work together with the lymphatic system, like the spleen, and others like thymus gland. So the role of lymph is mainly derived from the fluid. When fluid passes over cells, if that is a cell, and we have the fluid passing over this fluid contains nutrients. You know the major nutrients. It also contains oxygen. Nutrients like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, fatty acids and glycerol. And then sometimes also it could be containing heat. So some of this material will diffuse from the lymph fluid into the cell. Nutrients, oxygen, sometimes heat, for metabolism. After metabolism, the cell will release some materials. Some of the materials are waste metabolic products. A good example could be carbon 4 oxide. So one major role of the lymphatic system in relation to the lymph fluid, it bathes cells and supplies materials that we have mentioned. You can just mention one, like nutrients, and takes away waste metabolic product. And then another role of lymphatic system. Now we can remind ourselves of digestion. We said after digestion of fats, it will be fatty acids and glycerol. But they are not absorbed directly into the circulatory system like the rest of the nutrients. But they are absorbed into the lymphatic system through a vessel or a blood vessel, a lymphatic vessel called lacteal. Through lacteal. And then it will be transported to the rest of the body. So one role of lymphatic system is transportation of fatty acids and glycerol. And then we have mentioned some parts here that are important. For example, spleen. Spleen, as a lymphatic system component, produces antibodies in form of white blood cells, especially for fetus. Again, thymus gland. This one produces lymphocytes that are usually converted to T specialized cells. So also provides defense. Provides defense against disease causing organisms. And then remember also the lymph nodes. We said lymph nodes usually filter. They filter the blood, filtering microorganisms. That's why when there's a wound on your body, especially, for example, on your arms, you realize that the lymph nodes, if it is on your arm, the lymph nodes under your armpits, they'll swell and they'll be painful because they have accumulated enough bacteria, and also they have been forced to increase production of antibodies to fight against disease-causing organisms. System number 8, excretory system. Excretory system. You can remember the major components of excretory system. We said excretion in the mammals, for instance, is achieved by very many other organs, but the major one is the kidney. That is why when your kidneys fail, your excretory system is interfered with. That's why people will be taken to hospitals for so that their blood can be cleaned. And then in the kidneys, we also have apparatus like the ureters. We also have urinary bladder. And we have the urethra. We were able to go through this very carefully. The kidney, we said, that is the major part where excretion takes place. So kidneys is where majorly where excretion takes place through two processes: ultrafiltration and reabsorption. So if blood passes through the kidneys, waste metabolic products are removed, and then they'll be delivered to urinary bladder through the ureters. And when in the urinary bladder, when it is full or it has reached maximum volume, urine will flow outside the body through the urethra. So the function of excretory system is mainly removal or removes waste metabolic products from the body. But the major ones, as we are able to mention, is urea. We have ammonia and excess salts, with some small amounts of uric acid. But as it is removing these waste metabolic products, they come out with water. Some of these waste metabolic products will be coming out in form of urine, which is in liquid form, which means it contains water. Therefore, as water is flowing out, if we had more in the body, it is carrying out the process of osmoregulation, maintaining osmotic pressure. Of the fluids, of body fluids. Maintaining osmotic pressure of body fluids. So as this is happening, also excess salts are removed, therefore also involved in ionic regulation. Ionic regulation. The last system is muscular system. 9. Muscular system. So muscular system is majorly made up of skeletal muscles. Skeletal. One major part of muscular tissue is the one that contracts and relaxes to bring about movement and locomotion. Contracts and relaxes to bring about movement, and locomotion. So with that question, we have been able to review the body systems, the parts, and the major function. So it becomes very easy for us to understand. So let us just illustrate how these systems can work together, combining the systems. Combining the systems. Body systems must work together, as we have already said, for bringing nutrients to tissue, to cells and tissues, also taking away waste metabolic products, so that this can enable the body systems or the organism to either grow, to move, to reproduce, and respond appropriately to changes in the environment. We are going to use a question to understand how the systems can be combined. So the questions are here. One of them is, the diagram shows a stylized body with several systems. A stylized body with several systems. So here is the diagram. So that is a diagram showing several parts showing a heart at that point. Those are muscles at that point. Then here, the nervous system, nervous endocrine. Nervous endocrine system. So we have a tube running through the body. We can find which tube is that one. That tube describes the digestive system. So this is a digestive system. Then we have a system allowing gases in and out. That one illustrates respiratory system. Respiratory system. But we have a system allowing materials to circulate throughout the body. That one is circulatory system. Circulatory system. And then we have one that's only allowing materials to get out. That is reproductive system. And materials are getting from circulatory system into that system, and then they flow out urinary system. And all of these systems are housed in the body. So we have that part that houses everything. It can be illustrated to be the skin. And then those are muscular system. Muscular system. So the question is, on the diagram, draw the pathway of substances. Draw the pathway of substances as they pass. As they pass through the body to different organ system. Now let us look at substances like carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide. Carbon 4 oxide, for instance, from muscles, from muscular system. We know that in the muscular system is where we have the highest rate of respiration. It will produce carbon 4 oxide. That carbon 4 oxide will diffuse from muscular cells to circulatory system. Let us assume it is, let me use black. So we have CO2, carbon 4 oxide, diffusing from muscular. It will now start flowing with blood, direction of blood. That is CO2 to the heart, then the heart pumps to the rest of the body. But now it will go in that direction. It might go a full circle, and because of high concentration of CO2 in the circulatory system, it will diffuse into the alveoli of the lungs. So here we have CO2, and then it diffuses out. So we have carbon 4 oxide at that point. Let us find another material, glucose. Glucose usually enters the body maybe in form of carbohydrates. That is the mouth, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a form of carbon. It will flow through this system as it is being digested, but it will not go beyond that. Sometimes, if we have undigested carbohydrates, they'll get out of the body through the anus. But most of the material after digestion, they'll be absorbed into the bloodstream again, into the bloodstream in that form. Maybe it is glucose. Carbohydrate has been turned to glucose. It is absorbed into the bloodstream, circulatory system. Now, after it gets into the circulatory system, it might go full circle, or this glucose will diffuse out of the circulatory system into the muscular cells, because that's where glucose is required more for contraction and relaxation. It will be respired to produce energy, to produce contraction and relaxation in the muscular system. We can look at other substances like oxygen. Oxygen, to get into the system, again, it will be through respiratory system. Oxygen is here. Through inhalation of gases, oxygen gets into the lungs, the alveolar space, or into alveoli, and then it diffuses from alveolar space into the blood capillaries. The heart will pump this blood with oxygen to the rest of the system. Some of this oxygen will diffuse into the muscles for respiration. Remember, we have glucose and oxygen that are important for respiration. And then we have several other materials that will be flowing through this system. And if it is urinary system, we have some waste metabolic products flowing, as we have already suggested. So this diagram just illustrates that actually we have several systems that are going to work together to bring the function of delivering material to cells, like in the muscular system, and taking away waste metabolic products. But all of these reactions or processes are under the control of nervous system and endocrine system. So I think we have seen how this works, and it has helped us to understand the concept of systems working together. We have digestive system supplying materials to the blood, and then blood now, as we have already said, is the one that delivers material to the rest of the body. We have seen how materials are diffusing from respiratory systems, oxygen, into blood to the muscular system. Carbon dioxide from the muscular system into blood, then out into blood to the respiratory system, then out of the respiratory system through exhalation. So I hope you have enjoyed this topic. We shall summarize it in our next lesson. Thank you.